Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with New York City jazz bassist and composer Marty Isenberg. We spent some quality time talking about his debut 2023 CD, The Way I Feel Inside. Playing bass was love at first pluck, as his career as a jazz musician began at the age of 12 after losing his father to cancer the prior year. For almost 20 years, he has been part of the rich New York City music scene. His performing career weaves through many styles of music, from jazz to classical to theater and contemporary music. He pulls from all of these experiences to arrange music that pays homage to the inspiration, ultimately, from the films of Wes Anderson. We get into all of this and so much more. Enjoy this interview.
It's great to meet you. Thank you for taking some time out today. I'm looking forward to diving into the brand new album and everything surrounding your life. And to begin with, I'd love to know, as a musician, how you survived COVID now that the world's waking up, and how it's changed the way that you approach things now.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, so when COVID hit, I was gigging around New York and all this stuff, and I think there was a little bit of disbelief of what was going to happen. But as it sort of slowly set in that all the gigs were going away, my first reaction was to try to find the opportunity in this crisis, and I went through these phases during the pandemic of being very creative and productive, and then just also getting depressed at the possibility of things sort of never returning to normal. But I do think it's sort of been this unique event in the lives of my generation and people who are, our generation, people who went through this experience of having a moment to sort of stop and evaluate the things you're doing in your life and what is just, busyness and what is rewarding. And it really gave me an opportunity to start this project and, think about a little bit, have a moment to think about a little bit what I wanted my life to be, I guess.
So The Way I Feel Inside is the brand new album. That has to feel good for that to be coming out now with live music happening and the world in a very different place.
Absolutely, yeah.
How did this artistically come together? How did you construct this album?
Sure. So this all, it kind of started with, I'm a huge Wes Anderson fan, and one of the things that I love the most about his movies is the music in his films and how he also uses that music to get an emotional effect out of the scene. I think that both in the music that is scored for the films by Mark Mothersbaugh and also the sort of mixtape vibe of his soundtracks that have this kind of indie playlist vibe. And I've sat with this music for a long time. Some of my favorite songs are in these movies. And I wrote an arrangement of Stephanie Says by the Velvet Underground. And I put it up online. This was during the pandemic. And I kind of said, well, this is cool. What if I did this thing that was a Wes Anderson concept for an album? And people were really receptive to the idea. And so I was like, okay, I have some positive feedback. I'm going to start to think about this a little bit more. And I think as it developed, I think some certain themes popped out at me of what, connects this music and what really attracts me to it, and why I think that it would make an interesting album. And some of that has to do with ideas of identity and how sometimes we use media as a placeholder to tell people who we are. When you think about sort of the concept of giving someone a mixtape, it's kind of like trying to tell someone this is what it feels like to be me. This is who I really am. And you can just kind of listen to the sounds of it without having to say the words. And especially for teenagers, right? Because that's sort of who I remember giving mixtapes to and stuff. It's you don't have all the words to say what your identity is yet, but it's like, this thing, this is who I am, you know, and this is how I feel inside. This is what it feels like to be me. So as I continue to work on this album with that in mind, I think there's this added level of me as a composer sort of looking at this music that was so important to me and shaping it in, you know, my own style and with my own, you know, sort of voice to it.
So how did this jazz journey begin for you? Kind of talk to me about where you were born and raised, you know, influences
Sure.
and how it took off.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Portland, Oregon. I was there until I was about 10 years old. It's kind of this like beautiful, idyllic memory of mine because it was the perfect childhood until things got a little bit more complicated for me. My father had cancer and he ended up passing when I was about 10 or 11. And so my family uprooted to Connecticut, where the rest of our family was, because both my parents were professors and they had gotten jobs out in Portland, but we didn't have any family out there. My family's all on the East Coast. So I got to Connecticut and, you know, I was sort of separated from all, you know, not only having going through this experience with my family, but like all the friends I had were no longer there. So I was a little isolated. And my father, who was he was a professor of Russian literature, believe it or not, but he used to play all these instruments for us. He would play the mandolin and the guitar and the bass guitar. And so one of the things I did during that time when I was sort of grieving is I took the bass guitar off the wall and I started learning how to play it, reading tablature from Bass Guitar magazine. And it just became this thing for me where, like, I don't know, I was able to feel good for a little bit of time and feel a little bit connected to my dad. And, you know, it became a huge part of, like, my life and who I wanted to be, you know, to be a musician. And, you know, my taste started out sort of, you know, rock and roll and then exploring all these sort of indie rocks and under the radar music that I found really interesting and rare. And as I got to develop my skills, I got more into jazz and like playing with other people and the sort of freedom that improvisation gives us as performers. And that was something that was really interesting to me and has always been a big part of my life and helped me sort of organize everything around it.
What was the first live jazz show that you saw that really blew you away?
Great question. I'm not sure the very first jazz concert I ever went to, but I do remember when I was in high school in New Haven, Elvin Jones came with the Jazz Machine to Yale, and at this point, like he was pretty close to when he passed, but and they had to like sort of carry him onto the stage. You know, he was so weak, but as soon as he sat down on the drums, it was the loudest thing I'd ever heard in my life, and it was just so amazing. And that was definitely one of the experiences I'll never forget. One of the best concerts I've ever been to.
That's wonderful. What do you like the best about this process of being a professional musician? There's so many things that go into it, but what do you love the most?
Good question. Well, someone said this to me once, and it's always resonated to me, the idea that, like, being a musician is sort of your passport to the world. And in one sense that you can use it as a way to travel around the world, but in a more, like, concrete sense, it's like music is this secret language that we share, this emotional language that just gives me an opportunity with whomever I'm playing with to just, like, connect on this very deep level and sort of see their humanity and you know, like, if you can play, if you're someone that has the chops to play, it's like there's so much we can share, you know? And I mean, obviously I enjoy sharing with people at different levels of music too, but I think that there's something special about that. And, you know, especially in, you know, times like now where we're divided on so many levels, it's really a unique experience to be able to just sit down with a stranger and, you know, maybe not have everything, you know, the same set of beliefs, and still be able to be in a place where we're communicating and like feeling each other and connecting in that way. And I think that's also kind of connected to the history of jazz in that, you know, it's sort of a way to express our humanity and to just see the humanity in others, you know, that is undeniable, you know, when we play together or we hear music.
So, Marty, everyone out there has a perception of you, an idea of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but ultimately you live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
That is a very good question. Who do I think I am? I think that identity is a really complex thing, and it's something that I've thought a lot about lately as I've been working on this album and, you know, other parts of my life. One of the most core things about my identity is being a musician. But that's also connected to a bunch of other stuff, right? Because I'm someone that came out late in life. So a lot of my youth, I was so attached to being a musician because it was this safe way to kind of express who I am and how I felt without assigning words to everything. I could be screaming on the bass and you don't know what I'm saying, but you might feel it or you might, you know, get a sense of what I'm trying to communicate. So, you know, with that in mind, I think of myself as, you know, just someone who loves music and loves to connect with other people, and as an artist and a creative person, I'm someone that I love to have a good time in comedy and, you know, all those things. Complex, I suppose.
I dig it, man. Marty, if anyone wants to get the brand new album, The Way I Feel Inside, see you live, anything related to your world, where's the best place to go?
Great. So you can follow me on Instagram at Marty Isenberg. You can also go to my website, martyisenberg.com. I'm on Twitter and YouTube as Between the Gigs. And I perform around the city, and we have a bunch of shows that we're planning to do during the course of this album release over the summer and the fall. And all that information will be up on my website.
Beautiful, Marty. Hey, thank you for opening up. Thanks for your time. Best of luck with the album and the live shows as things kind of open up in the world.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a real treat.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Portland, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Marty for his time, energy, and cool. If you want to hear more interviews, you can find Neon Jazz Archive interviews on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube. And for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.